We will make America powerful again. We will make America wealthy again.
Donald Trump was fired by 81 million people, and clearly he is having a very difficult time processing that.
She got 0 votes, and when she ran, she was the first one to leave because she failed.
Welcome, Najma Minhas. Thank you for joining me. With 55 days to go until the end of the elections and the polls showing a tight race, the 90-minute debate between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump last week had millions watching across the United States and the world to see what was in store for them in the next 4 years. Most keenly sitting on the edge of their chairs would have been Zelensky, Putin, Xi Jinping and Netanyahu, and little old me with my popcorn as I was watching the debate. Now, Donald Trump is a known factor in the field. His approach on foreign policy includes that everyone's ripping America off, and his transactional attitude towards making deals is known. So Europe and NATO were ripping America off and needed to spend more on their own defense budgets.
We're the piggy bank to the world. We've been ripped off by China. We've been ripped off by, excuse me, Mr. President, the European Union. We've been ripped off by everybody. I want to protect the American worker, the American farmer, the ranchers, the companies, and we're not being ripped off, you will see.
In fact, during his period in time, there was also a tiff between Germany and the United States about the amount that Germany spends on its defense budget. His transactional approach included making the Abrahamic Accords and going and meeting Kim Jong-un and making best buddies with him. But his ideas resonate with his supporters, who are also very skeptical of the US global engagement and support Trump's calls for military disengagement abroad. And they want that money spent, American money at American homes, improving the rundown infrastructure of their country and putting interests of America first, or as they say, make America great again. By contrast, Kamala Harris is an unknown commodity on foreign policy and has very little experience. That may give an opportunity for those with strong ideas to lead her in the direction they want if she becomes president. The progressives are already very excited that she is standing, since she was seen to be somewhat center of the left of the party. So they think maybe something might change on the Israel-Palestine issue, for example, or other issues such as those relating to human rights, for example, may become much more highlighted under her administration. Now, Kamala may also feel pressure as a woman to show she's tough, like Hillary was said to have done. However, statistical analysis shows actually that female leaders are more likely to initiate conflict because they need to be seen as much tougher than men. Indira Gandhi, Margaret Thatcher from the United Kingdom were often referred to as Iron Ladies.
Общался и с одним президентом США, и с другим, и с третьим. Президенты приходят и уходят, а политика не меняется. Знаете почему? Потому что очень сильна власть бюрократии. Вот человека избрали, он приходит с одними идеями, к нему приходят люди с кейсами, хорошо одетые и в темных, как у меня, костюмах, но только не с красным галстуком, а с черным или с темно-синим. И начинают объяснять, как нужно делать.
Now, keeping that in mind, first, coming to the latest bogeyman in American politics, China and Xi Jinping. No serious discussion took place over China policy between either candidate during the US debate last week, which is crazy given it is the key relationship driving the country right now. But the reality is that their views hardly matter. The policy of China's containment started since 2014 and is being run by those very men wearing those blue ties. Both candidates knew their talking points, and talking tough tariffs on China gets them votes. The Chinese, who in 2021 were looking forward to the Democrats coming back in power, were very disappointed with Biden since he did not reverse any of the tariffs that Trump had imposed. In fact, he went on to impose even more. This fairy tale that Tom, Dick and Jose are being told here in the United States has no reality to it. Ask any real economist who's not politically motivated. The overcapacity story or the loss of jobs driving US foreign policy is a fairy tale for these innocent people. It's a simple hegemonic power strategy by the United States. Since 1992 and the end of the Cold War, they've been the global and regional hegemon in every part of the world, and they want it to remain that way. No surprise. Power is seen by the real political actors in the system as a zero-sum game in which either the United States has the power or China has it, and hegemony is driven by the military and economic power. And keeping the United States dollar as the world's reserve currency is paramount. Now, as China becomes the largest trading partner for most countries in the world and takes a larger share of the global manufacturing, it threatens US hegemony, simple as that. Harris, who in her 4 years as vice president never had much to do with China. The only time she met President Xi was to say hi to him in 2022 at some forum in the Pacific. In fact, the Biden administration had a shockingly low amount of engagement with their largest and what should have been most important relationship. Antony Blinken took 873 days before he made his first visit to China. Of course, COVID is partly responsible, but contrast this to Obama's administration policy of engagement, where Hillary turned up in China within 1 month of taking office. She and later John Kerry, when he became Secretary of State, both made a total of 16 visits in 8 years. But during the debate held last week, Harris made a show of criticizing Trump for his past dealings with China, accusing him of being too soft on tariffs and trade, and picked up on a random tweet Trump did thanking Xi in 2020. And it's ironic, since it was Trump who brought the severe tariff policy against China that the United States has today, which President Biden built upon. Now, we can expect the Harris policy to really be more of the same, as followed by her current boss. Maybe she might focus a bit more on what the Democrats' hypocritical but favorite word is, human rights, but with respect to China. But why do I say it's hypocritical? Well, basically, we know that they don't really care about it unless they want to topple the government or they don't like the government in charge. As we know, many of their buddy countries have worse human rights, if not equal. Trump's stance is much more upfront, and so it's good in that way. It's all about economic rivalry, straight up, rather than this wishy-washy pretense that the Democrats have over human rights concerns. He's promised even more of the tariffs this time round, and he's pledged to drastically hike up tariffs across the board to all countries. So all US imports may face at least a 10% tariff for goods, while China would actually be subject to about 50%. Now, China and all of the other countries that have been ripping us off for years, as he says, are going to face these higher prices.
I'm doing this to do the right thing for our country. We have been ripped off by China for a long time. And I told that to President Xi.
The plan is expected to be actually a disaster for the United States and China and the US, with this wholesale giving into protectionism, which has never brought prosperity to anyone. Economists have already said that these tariffs will be a disaster and will lead the United States economy into a recession. There is no upside looming in this scenario. A 2022 Gallup poll found that only 4% of Americans saw foreign policy as an important issue for determining their vote. Now, although this year the Muslim community has expressed its dissatisfaction with the Biden administration, and many have said that they will not vote for the Democrats if the present policy on Israel and Palestinians continues. During the debate, however, both candidates fell over themselves to tell the American people how much they love Israel and how each one of them would be the better person to keep Israel safe. They both supported Israel's right to defend itself as well. Donald Trump bombastically said that Harris, if she's president, I believe Israel would not exist within 2 years from now.
If she's president, I believe that Israel will not exist within 2 years from now. She hates Israel.
Ironically, American politicians dare not cross swords with AIPAC, which is the Israeli lobby, since it's so strong, and American politicians tend to be even more pro-Israel than the average Jose or Sam in the US street. American presidents are not even willing to disturb the status quo and see that AIPAC lobby has directly contributed to keeping the region disturbed, in fact. It has even so not allowed the US legislative or the executive branch to say something to Israel. Israel's like that spoilt child who uses daddy's credit card to buy toys which go and kill in the playground, and daddy just looks the other way. But Harris talks of the importance of the two-state solution. She did emphasize that both Israelis and Palestinians deserve security, dignity, and self-determination.
It must end immediately, and the way it will end is we need a ceasefire deal and we need the hostages out. And so we will continue to work around the clock on that. Work around the clock, also understanding that we must chart a course for a two-state solution. And in that solution, there must be security for the Israeli people and Israel, and in equal measure for the Palestinians.
She highlighted the need that Gaza needs to be rebuilt and stressed the importance of addressing the humanitarian crisis and calling for the war to end as quickly as possible through ceasefire negotiations and a hostage release deal. Donald Trump took a much more hardline approach, claiming that Israel would not exist if Harris were elected president. Trump framed his past foreign policy as much stronger and pointed to his decisions like sanctioning Iran, moving the United States Embassy to Jerusalem, and recognizing Israel's sovereignty over the Golan Heights.
In a moment, I will sign a presidential proclamation recognizing Israel's sovereign right over the Golan Heights.
He also suggested that his policies had weakened Iran to the point where they couldn't fund terrorist groups like Hamas and Hezbollah, and he contrasted this with the current administration's approach, which he said empowered Iran.
They took off all the sanctions that I had. Iran had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah or any of the 28 different spheres of terror, and they are spheres of terror.
And he talked about the fact that they released the $6 billion last year in 2023 as part of the hostage deal. There is a reason why Netanyahu has made it obvious he's looking forward to Trump coming to power. And if you're a Palestinian, to be honest, neither candidate cares about you. But at least Trump says it to your face and doesn't sugarcoat it like Harris will. I'd love to ask you what your thoughts are on who would be better for the Palestinians and why. Do drop your thoughts in the comments section below as well. Harris, unlike Trump, is an internationalist and has said that the United States' support for NATO is unwavering and ironclad. On Ukraine and Russia, Harris has reiterated her support for continuing the Biden administration's policy of backing Ukraine and ensuring that they have the necessary support to defend themselves.
Brought 50 countries together to support Ukraine in its righteous defense. And because of our support, because of the air defense, the ammunition, the artillery, the javelins, the Abrams tanks that we have provided, Ukraine stands as an independent and free country.
She's expected to be tough on Russia and has earlier said that Russia had committed crimes against humanity in the war. The Russia presidential spokesperson has noted her as being unfriendly, having unfriendly rhetoric. The Russian state media has already started to attack her, and one Russian analyst on state TV said her having the nuclear button is being worse than having a monkey with a grenade. Trump is strongly on the other side of this issue. He suggested that the United States should focus on ending the conflict quickly, even if it means negotiating with Russia to secure peace. He's arguing that a prolonged war is not in the United States' interest. And in his usual style of shooting from the hip, he's pledged to settle the war before taking office if he wins in November, without offering any details as to how he intends to do that. He says, what I'll do is I'll speak to one of them and I'll speak to the other and I'll get them together. I'm sorry for laughing. But he's reiterated this claim in the past that the war would never have happened had he been in office instead of Biden and Kamala. And he's insisted that he's more respected by world leaders than either of the other two. He went on to say that I know Zelensky very well and I know Putin very well. They respect me. They don't respect Biden.
I want to get the war settled. I know Zelensky very well and I know Putin very well. I have a good relationship and they respect your president, okay? They respect me.
On this point, she accused him of basically pandering to every authoritarian leader out there and just favoring dictators and strongmen over democratic values. She specifically mentioned that these are the leaders who undermine democracy and they're rooting for Trump to win again. This was a clear reference to Trump's past praise for people like Putin, Kim Jong-un and Viktor Orbán, the Hungarian Prime Minister. Now, if you're Zelensky, you're praying hard for a Kamala win.
If Donald Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now.
Once again, what's your approach that you think is best for the United States? Do you see global stability happening under the policy being pursued by Biden administration vis-a-vis Russia and Ukraine? Please do discuss. The reality is that most of Biden administration's agenda on China and the Middle East before October the 7th was simply taking over from policies that were pursued by Trump. The hardline stance on China, tariffs, trying to extend the Abrahamic Accords to bringing the Saudis on board. The biggest difference, however, is how they see the role of the United States on the global stage. I didn't discuss India as there is a clear bipartisan consensus to work with India to contain China. That is currently driving US policy, so there's no difference between the two candidates. Do share with me your thoughts on the key US foreign policy issues and whether you think it's going in the right direction. If so, on what countries and what issues? Do like, subscribe on the channel if you enjoy its content.